Awesome. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to our webinar, The Quiet Crisis, where we will be discussing research and best practices for hiring and recruiting. As you can see on your right, there is a panel for GoToWebinar. You can see in those sections you're able to ask questions or comments throughout the webinar. We will be moderating the chat and questions, so please feel free to participate in that way. We will be having a Q&A at the end. So if you do have questions for our panelists or Shane or our product experts, we will be addressing those at the end. You also can use the audio drop-down box to select either computer or phone audio. And if you call in details, those are listed as well. Just a reminder that tomorrow you will be receiving an email with a link to the recording, and you also will get a presentation of the slide deck. If you have any questions after the webinar, you can contact us at contact@neogov.com. Let's go ahead and introduce our panelists. First, we have Ms. Jocelyn Fabella. She is the HR generalist from El Paso County, Texas. Then we have Jason Swarthout. He is the Director of Talent Management at the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We now have Heather Edwards. She is an HR manager at the Colorado Springs Public Safety in Colorado. And then we have Jana Sains. She is the Employment Administrator at the City of Greenville in South Carolina. And finally, we have our moderator, Shane Evangelist, the CEO at NEOGOV. And let's go ahead and hand the time over to him.
Thank you, Vanessa. And again, to my panelists, so appreciate you joining. And with clearly, you guys are a big draw. We've got 700 folks on the phone here, so no pressure. I will tell you that I am in a fortunate spot at NEOGOV in that I get to spend a lot of time working on things that are of interest me. One is attracting talent. And I've spent a lot of time the last few years working with our product team around products to do that. And the second thing I love doing is research. I love looking at our data. I love analyzing our data, sharing it back with the team, as well as using it to help make our products better. And what we've got here is a little bit of that, a little bit of the data that came out of that. And we called it the quiet crisis because when we analyzed it and saw it, we were concerned. And it's, you know, there's been a trend on reduction in applicants, but this recent trend is problematic. And so we spent some time thinking about that, and we've been fortunate enough to have Jason, Heather, Jocelyn, and Jana join us to talk a little bit about what they're doing and what they're seeing and how they're addressing some of this. And then hopefully we can, you know, have it as a forum here for the folks that are on the call as well to engage with us. So with that, I don't have control of the screen, so I apologize in advance for telling next, but we're going to go next here. So here, let's go to high level. Job postings and applicants. We've seen the number of job openings up 45% over last year. So think about that. You've got, if you had 100 jobs open last year, you now have 145 jobs open. This is nothing I have to tell you guys is new. Clearly, you're seeing some turnover and some increased jobs, but the issue isn't that we see this sort of increase in jobs and then an increase in applicants. At the same time, we're seeing the number of applicants down 56%, and that is a big swing. And you know, I guess maybe Jason, is this what you guys are seeing and concerning or not, and kind of how are you thinking about this?
No, thank you, Shane, and welcome everybody. Yes, we're actually seeing this trend as well in Pennsylvania. I pulled our numbers specifically, and our number of applicants back in 2018 average per posting was about 40, and right now we're down to about 16 on an average, which means, you know, that we have less than that for a lot of our positions. So definitely seen this trend, definitely something that is impacting our workforce and our operations here in the Commonwealth.
Yeah. And Heather, interestingly enough, I know you're a lot in the public safety, a lot of law enforcement. Are you seeing more or less of that in the law enforcement side?
We are seeing more of this. Obviously, we were struggling with hiring police officers for the last few years, just based off of what's happened in the public. But we are seeing, and our postings don't necessarily go up, but our vacancies do, because one posting will cover multiple vacancies. But we are seeing the exact same thing. Our numbers actually almost exactly match these percentages.
Interesting. All right, let's go to the next slide. Couple of things on this front that I want to dig into that sort of makes the mix-up of how you get applicants. One is, are people seeing the jobs that are posting, right? And you can see in 2020, on average, per job posting throughout our entire system, and this is across, I want to say it was 25 million job postings last year, so it's a lot. 1,770 applicants would have seen the posting, or people would have seen the posting. So there would have been interest by that, views of that opportunity. And now you're seeing that number drop to 1,250. So it's already down 30%. And so that's part of the story. So the question is okay, so are people at least seeing that there's an opportunity out there? And you can kind of see how this has trended down. Let's go to the next slide. So then the question is, once they see it, are they signing up? So this is the second part of the conversation, right? Is the job attractive enough? Is the opportunity of interest that I would sign up? And what you've seen is this 2.5% of people who saw that job. So over that 1,770, 2.5%, yeah, said, yeah, I'm going to apply. And now you fast forward that to 2022 in the first half of this year, and we're seeing that number drop to 1.1%. It a 65% drop in attractiveness of that job. I guess you would open the question up, maybe Jocelyn, what do you think's happening as it relates to sort of it being less attractive? Like what are the inhibitors you're seeing come back from candidates who just don't want to apply?
Thank you for having me. So we haven't necessarily seen, just to clarify, El Paso County does serve several areas. We do have a court system, we have our sheriff's office, and we have a juvenile probation office. Now, each of those departments do vary in demand. So as we've seen a decrease in applications in our court system's administrative staff, we haven't seen much of a difference in application count in our sheriff's office. As for the court systems, we've seen more of the flexible request, where if they're requiring them to report to the office, we're seeing a decrease in attractiveness in that sense. As for our sheriff's office, we're just not seeing as many qualified candidates as we'd like. However, we do have very competitive pay, and we do have other benefits that we can offer that does remain attractive to that specific department for the sheriff's office, which is collective bargaining and our retirement account and things of that nature.
Yeah, and Jana, in Greenville, you've seen a similar trend. You kind of come across similar, like views are down and conversion rates are down.
Absolutely, and thank you, Shane. This is exactly what we're seeing. In fact, I recently looked at some of our job postings and saw that while we might have 770 views, we had a total of maybe just a handful of applicants who actually applied. So yes, that is definitely an issue for us as well. And what we're trying to do is go back and highlight things about those jobs that would make them more attractive, like shifts and things that are provided to those to people in those positions.
Yeah.
And we're finding that because of this statistic, we're also having to leave job postings open longer than we used to in order to get the number of qualified applicants we need.
Yeah, so did I lose you guys?
Nope, we've got you.
We got you, Shane.
Okay, good to know. I'm back. So to that point, Janet, that's interesting on these sort of jobs that are difficult. Let's go to the next screen for a second, then we'll come back to this. This is in, I don't know how many people on the call use this functionality inside Insight. But basically, inside Insight, about a year ago, maybe a little more than that, we said, hey, look, we need to help our recruiters understand where jobs are doing well and where jobs aren't doing well, and where they should spend time, specifically like you just described, Jana. How do I make that job more attractive? And this is in the analytics section, and on the left-hand side of this page, let's fast forward to the next one. I just want to make you guys know you all have access to this data. So let's go to the next one forward. So what this would tell you is, on the left-hand side of this chart, this is the conversion rate. That's what we just talked about. If 10 people see it and 3 people decide to become an applicant, I mean, if 100 people see it, 3 people decide to become an applicant, you have a 3% conversion rate. That's on that left-hand side. On the bottom is the number of views, and we did that per day so you guys could understand like how many people are seeing a specific job posting at any one given day. And what we show you here is, if you're in the upper right-hand part of this box, meaning your conversion rates are high and your views are high, you're doing great. Those jobs typically are well applicanted, if that's a word, right? We got plenty of people to choose from up in that upper right-hand box. If you're on the left-hand side of this page, in the upper boxes, sort of that blue area, you actually have conversion rates that aren't bad. They're converting between 1% to 3% or over 3%. And so in many cases, as long as you're getting enough views, meaning as long as enough people are seeing it, the job's attractive enough to get an applicant in, right? You end up getting enough applicants. That's why in many cases, we say, boy, advertise these jobs. These jobs are like, they're good enough, they're attractive enough, people see these jobs and they apply. So get some more career fairs or advertise, whatever you want to do here, but just get the word out, get loud about this job. If you're below 1%, and the reason I want to point this out to you is you see the conversion rates on average are now down at 1.1%, right? But when we first built this, we said, if you're below 1%, you have some sort of structural problem with that job. There's something wrong with the appeal of that job. Like, it doesn't matter how many times people see it, they're not going to apply. This is your point, Jana. How do I change shifting? What do I do about that? What is it about that job that's not attractive? The folks that do it really well inside the public sector actually interview candidates to try to find out what didn't you like about it. Like, we saw you looked at that, but tell me what was happening. Why didn't you apply? Was it a comp issue? Was it a time issue? Was it a workplace? Like, what does that look like? My point is, in your system today, in the analytics, use this. If you actually click into that structural job, it'll tell you how many times somebody's seen it. It'll tell you exactly what the conversion rates are, and you can really start to use that as you do strategic planning. And I know, Jason, some of the folks in your area use it. We've seen a lot of activity in Pennsylvania around it. And the other thing it does for you is it arms you with the data you need to go make changes up the chain or with a union, right? Because you can sit down in front of them and say, look, the way this is built today, it's simply we're going to run out of applicants. We won't be able to fill. We'll get to a little bit of the impact of that in a second. Let's go to the next slide. So now we put it all together, right? In 2020, we had decent views and 45 applicants per job. And I fast forward that to today, and by the way, Jason, your numbers were almost exactly the same, right? You were 40 and 16. This is 45 and 14, right? I mean, like, we're kind of right on top of it. And I'd open this up to the panel because, I mean, this is the crux of the issue right now, right? This is fundamentally the problem. Is what are we doing? Like, what like, if you had a chance to tell everybody on the phone here, the 810 folks who have dialed in to listen to exactly what I can't wait to hear what you're going to say, what would you tell them is sort of the best things you've seen work as it relates to trying to move this forward a little bit? And anybody, I'll just open that up to anybody.
Well, I know for us in Greenville, one of the things we've done to try to get more of our positions filled when we can't find the qualified applicants, we've created training programs, sort of like a apprenticeship or a position in training that would qualify someone who wouldn't otherwise qualify for the position to enter that entry-level role, and then they can move up from there, sort of creating career ladders for them in those hard to fill positions. And that's worked really well for us.
Jenny, you're doing that with folks who are already employed with the city, or you're doing that for bringing people on and then kind of training them up to be in that role?
For bringing people on from the outside.
Interesting.
It's creating our own pipeline to fill those difficult positions.
Oh.
I'd say in the Commonwealth, I think at the end of the day, we're all trying to figure out, what works in 2022 right now, and how do we move forward? And we've done the same thing, Jana. We created a unit, kind of using some of that 9-box slide from the previous slide. We have people that are just focused on our job specifications now. We dedicated a unit to do that, to make sure that our minimum qualifications are up to date, our compensation's up to date, but we also added numerous trainee job titles to kind of grow our own and just to create more pathways and more avenues to come in. So that's one thing that we're doing. But I mean, there's tentacles to this really everywhere, from advertising and workplace culture. And, we also looked at the hiring process in the Commonwealth, and, we're trying to do things to get people in the door as quick as possible. So, we've really combined in some areas our advertising, are working with programs closer, and our expedited hiring process together. For example, we have recruitment events now, and this was a big deal to us and we had to check some boxes because of our merit system. But essentially now what we're doing is advertising job fairs at our locations, like our veterans hospitals, our mental health hospitals, at PennDOT, our Department of Transportation. We're having a job fair on site. We're having the program there. We're interviewing people. We're testing them for their CDL. We're doing background checks. We're making a conditional job offer immediately that day, and then expediting the whole background check process. So we're trying to get people on the hook, in the door as fast as possible. And really having the program there, they can get a tour of the facility, they can ask questions, they get interviewed. So we're trying to make it a one-stop shop, and it's been successful in a lot of our areas, but it just really depends on the location. More rural we get, a little bit tougher, but that's some of the things we're doing.
Sounds like speed's a big issue for you guys right there. One of the ways you're trying to attack that is you're saying, hey, look, I'm not getting as many people, and the people aren't applying, but when they do get in, I want to move them as fast as I possibly can. I don't want to lose them. I don't want to have them fall out of the funnel. It's interesting. Yes. You said two other things I thought were insightful. One is this brand conversation, right? Yeah. Are we branding ourselves better, right? We haven't historically had to do that, right? Because we have historically had 1,770 folks showing up, and we've had 45 applicants, and that's been enough in the pool for us to get qualified candidates, right? But what's happening is we lose these views. We're seeing that while you're losing 45 to 14, the quality is also dropping at a faster pace as well, right? So you're not getting as many qualified candidates in there. And so there's a branding conversation, like how do I build that brand? That was one thing I thought was interesting, Jason. The second thing was, how do you get louder, right? How do you get more in front of people? I don't know if you guys are doing a lot of that work or you're thinking about that work, but it's certainly how the private sector would attack this problem, right? We would build brands, and then we would get loud. What are you guys doing from that perspective? And Jason, we just heard you, right? That anything else happening from that perspective?
With El Paso County, we, for the Sheriff's Office specifically, we are attending law enforcement high school programs. We have our law enforcement and our HR representatives attend those programs, and then just educate them on our vacancies and educate them on our program, and then be loud about El Paso County and representing in our community. Along with that, we've also do a lot of job fairs. We do have a military base in El Paso, which is Fort Bliss, so we do attend those job fairs as well. We also offer fellowship programs, which is hiring our heroes. We offer that within El Paso County as well. So we're trying to be as loud as possible with our entire community, which is with our high schools, our colleges, along with our military as well.
Interesting.
I can say we do something very similar when it comes specifically to police officers as compared to how we hire a civilian or advertise for our civilian positions is very different. Police officer positions, I'm sure Jocelyn knows this too, we're all competing with the same very small group of applicants who actually want to be police officers. So a lot of our outreach is more about our community, more about living in Colorado Springs and how amazing it is. And that our community, thankfully, still very much supports law enforcement. So that is a big push of what we have compared to other law enforcement agencies, because we are all pretty comparable when it comes to pay and benefits and retirement. And so we do a big outreach on that. We do reach out to high school. You have to be 21 to be a police officer. So what we do with the high school students is give them opportunities that you can work at the police department until you're old enough to be a police officer, if that's the path you want to go. We have a lot of civilian positions that meet that need. We have 5 military installations here, so we do a whole lot of outreach with the military installations as well. And we've also started in the state of Colorado doing joint job fairs with all the other law enforcement agencies. That way people who are interested just in law enforcement, we've kind of all joined forces, knowing that we kind of compete for some of those people, but it's more about, can we just get more people interested in wanting to work in law enforcement itself. For our civilian side, we do advertise those jobs a little different. We do try to offer some of those flexible work options in the positions that we can, but we also highlight career pathing here to our applicants to say you're not just stuck at this entry-level job. Here are all the different options you can promote to. A lot of that we've done, we've started doing video job descriptions, so people in those jobs are actually describing those jobs and describing what they like about those jobs and kind of where they've moved from the beginning to where they are now, so people can actually see career paths for themselves.
Yeah, Heather, but I'm hearing a theme across most of that. We're going younger and trying to train. That's interesting. It's an interesting theme I'm hearing, which is, can I get less qualified but hungry, and can I educate them and move them into the system? That's an interesting approach for sure. Let's go to the next page real quick. This is the one that probably frightens me the most, right? This data here is the one that I was sort of, this in combination with the next slide is the one that kind of gave me a lot of pause. Let's start on the right-hand side of this page. This is 25% of your jobs. So between 75th and the 100th percentile, the best jobs, you guys are killing it. 132 applicants per job, like there's no issue. And the problem with this is it's actually obfuscating what's really happening, right? Because if you were to remove the top quartile, you got real issues on that bottom end, right? So 50% of your jobs, you go to the left-hand side of this chart, are getting 8.5 applicants. Even in the 75th percentile, right, you're only at 17 applicants, which tells me that you got some jobs you got no issues with. By the way, my suggestion is don't spend any time on those top 25% of your jobs. They're performing just fine. Don't try to rewrite job descriptions. Don't try to figure them out. They're performing. But now as we get down to that left-hand part of this chart, you've got a lot of jobs that are just really struggling. And then if you know, I forget who exactly said it, but then you go to the qualified conversation, right? So this is just the applicants, right? Now I got an issue of, do I get a qualified applicant? Chart later will say 80% are not qualified. So you're talking about 2 times 7 is 1.5 qualified applicants. And then you got to hope you keep that applicant engaged over a 100-day period to hire. Like it's a challenge you guys have. There's no question about it. What are you doing here? Like, are you thinking about it from this perspective, and how are you approaching this? And it's similar. I mean, I think it's the same conversation, but we often can hurt ourselves with averages. Like averages kill. I say that internally all the time. Averages kill because it's not the real story. The real story is half your jobs are single-digit applicants. Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Okay.
Oh,
Go ahead, Jana.
We're doing a lot of the things that have been mentioned here, leveraging social media, getting the word out, being loud about Greenville. The social media is a great tool for that, and featuring employees that are already in those jobs in social media, and you know, making the job look inviting. So that's one of the things that we're doing.
Yeah, I would tell you guys, if you're in that bottom quartile, or the bottom 2 quartiles, but your conversion rates are high, you got to advertise. That's the solve. The solve is go figure out a way to get budget just to get the word out, because they'll convert. Like as soon as they know about it, they'll convert. If you're in that bottom quartile and you have really low conversion, you've got to go figure out structurally what's wrong with the job. And by the way, there's 1,700 jobs. It's not easy, right? And if half of them are in there, you're talking 900 jobs. You got to go figure out what you change on. And then you're going to be handcuffed with constraints around, well, you can't change comp or you can't change X, right? And so I get that it's not an easy thing to do. And I don't think there's any silver bullet, but there's certainly buckets for which you can think about how do I attack this. And let's go to the next slide. Yeah, and so this is what we found. We surveyed, I forget the exact number, maybe it was 250 HR folks, similar to yourself, right? And probably many of the folks on the call may have actually answered this, but when we asked, are you finding enough qualified candidates? The answer we were getting was, we're just not anymore. Like, and this number, we did this 3 years ago. This was like a 50-50 split. So it looks like not only are you getting less views, not only having less conversion, but the people who are converting are actually not as qualified. It's like sort of a triple whammy. Let's flip to the next page. So this one was a simple question was like, all right, we got this challenge. What's the result of this challenge? What's happening, right? Well, first we saw we're getting a lot more staff burnout because people just have to do more work, right? You know, the great thing about the public sector is you guys are there to serve, and you want to keep serving, and so you feel like you got to take that on. And obviously there's a cost associated with it with increased overtime. And you guys are sharing more employees across shared services. But the one that caught my attention is cut back in services to citizens. Like there's an absolute impact to the citizen. And was interested in your guys' perspective on, are you seeing that in your agencies? Is there some areas? We're all friends here, so we're not gonna disclose this publicly. But you know, like, what are you seeing? Like, where are you seeing slower service to citizens, and kind of how you thinking about that? I would understand if no one wanted to answer this question and admit to the world that citizens are not being serviced quite the way they were previously.
I can speak to this maybe in a, I don't know, politically correct way. So what this has caused, specifically related to cutbacks in services, is not only a more creative way, like / desperate way to think about how we handle our calls for service, how we prioritize calls for service. So there have been a whole lot of discussions around what calls do we actually need a uniformed police officer on, what calls can be handled over the phone, what calls can be handled through an online reporting system. Those are the big conversations that we've had that have changed how we do business when it comes to serving the citizens for calls for service. Is it the best way? No. Is it the only way right now, just based off of the staffing challenges we're having? Probably, to where our uniformed police officers are going to the, you know, the more violent calls, the more intense calls, you know, those things. And can we dial back the other things? Now, the citizens do not like that. Obviously, you know, when you call the police, it is the most desperate moment of your life sometimes, and it could just be that your bike got stolen. But we don't have the capacity to do some of those things now. So those have been the conversations we have had, specifically related to cutbacks in services. How can we still serve the community, balancing our staffing deficit?
It sounds like what I'm hearing you say, Heather, is there's a big prioritization discussion happening inside the public sector right now. It's probably happening across all departments, right? It's not just policing, right? Or it's going to be in the tax area. It's going to be in permitting areas, right? Like what do we have to get to? And it sounds like that might be the first stage that you're seeing that happen. Some real prioritization taking place. Which, by the way, in some cases can be quite productive, right? You can actually really think about, what do I have to do? But in many cases, it's probably having an impact. Let's go to the next slide here as it relates to time to hire. So on average in our system, we're seeing 108 days time to hire. Just so we're clear on this, this is from the time when the job's posted to the time that the person's hired. And in many cases, many of our HR folks can't control how much time the manager spends doing whatever the manager's doing. So I don't think this is an indictment on any individual person, but this is just the reality that an applicant gets, right? I've submitted my application, and it takes me 108 days to get in the seat. And you know, look on the bottom end of this, it's 268 days, right? This feels like, I mean, 10% of our jobs are taking 268 days to fill, and when you think about that across the country, it's 2.5 million jobs. It's a lot. It's a big. I'm sorry, it's probably 500,000 in our system in a year, and you could 2x, so 1.5 million, and you back that off. So you know, 150,000 jobs are probably sitting around this sort of long period of time. And Jason, you mentioned it, right? You said, hey, look, we've clearly identified if I've got a person who's interested and I've got them in front of me, man, do I want to move fast to close this quickly? And that sounds like a great practice to me. Anybody else working on the time to hire piece? Heather, I'll get to you in a second because yours is on the next page. But you know, Jana or Jocelyn, you guys doing anything else as it relates to speed?
Aside from job fairs and hiring on the spot, we have also implemented changes in our testing phase. So initially, when we would receive the application, we would have the hiring managers rate those applications, and then we would move forward to testing. What we've done now is we automatically test those candidates that meet qualifications for the positions. Thereafter, we'll go ahead and move them and refer them to those hiring managers so we can speed up the recruitment process, and then therefore they can go ahead and move into the interview process much faster, and therefore helping them fill those vacancies much quicker.
Yeah, thanks. Jen, anything on your front that's sort of a nugget?
Yeah, with regard to public safety, especially where like with our fire, that's been an area of hiring where we've seen a lot fewer interested applicants than we have in the past. So what we've done, instead of offering, 1 or 2 testing sessions a year where they can test, do all the entry-level testing required, we're now offering those a lot more often on a regular basis and keeping it open for those applicants to
Yeah, so you're increasing the frequency, it sounds like, just to try to move that forward. I think that's great. Go to the next slide. I mean, you guys are dealing with this too, law enforcement, corrections officer, fire, 152 days. I'm surprised you get anybody, frankly. Like, that's just a long time, right? Like, think about that. I apply and then I go through that process. So, yeah, Heather, I don't know if we have to go into much on it, but you certainly can speak to what you're doing in this front, or anybody can, but this feels like a critical area that we probably, I tell you, if there's something we can do to speed up your process, let us know.
Yeah, and this is probably one of the biggest points of feedback that we get on our hiring. A lot of that time, though, is because the background investigation process is so long. You get fully investigated. They talk to everybody ever. They research every place you've ever lived. So it's a pretty extensive process. What we've changed to on our sworn and then a few of our harder or higher turnover civilian positions is we've gone to a continuous hiring model. So just like Jocelyn said, whoever applies, if they meet the minimum qualifications, immediately they get invited to test. If they pass the test, they immediately get invited to an interview. If they score high enough on the interview, they immediately get a conditional offer and go into the background investigation process. We used to start academies once every 8 months. We're going to start academies now once every 3 months. So our hiring process for sworn used to take 10 to 11 months. We've actually cut that down to 6. So
clearly what I'm hearing, Heather, sort of interrupt you there, is frequency. It's like we just can't be on, it's almost like we can't dictate the frequency. We have to just be faster at what we're doing in each one of these steps. That's sort of interesting. Yeah. Jason, anything on your side?
Yeah, we're doing a lot of the same stuff that some of the other states are. I know from a data perspective, one of the things we're doing is, particularly for law enforcement and the background checks that take a little bit longer, we've actually cut them out from our total average because those jobs are different. But we like to share that information with all of our administrative deputies in the agencies, and I let them see everybody's average so they can kind of see and compare themselves against other agencies and see the interview time specifically, because some agencies are better than others, to kind of maybe put a little peer pressure on them to show that some of the other agencies can get things through a little bit quicker. So that's been a little bit helpful. As far as the background check process, we're doing a lot of the same things that was mentioned here, and also the continuous postings has been helpful. If we're having trouble finding applicants, we always want something up for them to apply to. So if we do find an applicant, there's a posting just ready, get them there, and then we can refer the name kind of as quick as possible. So I think we're all kind of doing those similar kind of things, it sounds like.
Jason, to your point, one of the best practices we consistently hear, similar to what you just said, was in the analytics tool and Insight, there's the benchmarking application. Hopefully you guys are using it. Yep. It's really, really powerful when you use it for a hiring manager who's not moving at a fast pace enough speed. So you can literally pull up your job, you can look in there and show your hiring manager that in this phase, which is your phase, you are absolutely 21 days longer than your peers in agency. Oh, by the way, we could also show you how you compare to your peers in other agencies, right? And that, to your point, Jason, that peer pressure is super helpful, right? It's just, this is part of our issues, and we're seeing more fallout and dropout from candidates in that process. So, with that, let's kick it over to I think the next one's questions, correct? Yeah, awesome.
If I may also add, Shane, I apologize for the interruption. Something that we've done here with the Sheriff's Office is we've employed temporary jailers, which is for detention officers. So we've seen a struggle in finding qualified applicants. Now, just to provide some numbers, we receive approximately 3,000 applications. They go through the entire process, which is the testing, the interviews, the PT test. And in the end, we're hiring about 77 of those 3,000 applicants. So what we resorted to is we've hired temporary jailers. And within that 1 year, because we can employ them for about approximately 1 year, we'll then transition them into an academy if we've seen quite a success rate with that process instead of just seeking for those applicants as well. So we've moved into a temporary basis, and then we process them into an academy, and then we've seen more retention from that.
That's great. That's great. And Mackenzie, if you could move back up to the slide during Q&A that's got views, conversion, and applicants. Let's center on that. Michelle, any questions out there?
Oh, yes, we do have questions. In fact, there have been so many questions, it's been tricky to try and keep up. So I have a question for Jana that a couple people that wanted to know is your training program that you talked about, is that a paid program or something that people join as like an unpaid internship?
It's actually a paid program, and we put it out there on a job posting. It's an employee that when we hire them, they're an employee and they're paid, and they go through this training program, and it stipulates that they have a certain number of weeks to complete it in order to then move into that job that we're trying to get them into. So we're right now doing that with bus operators, with equipment operators in public works. And we just recently started with firefighters and bringing them in as a firefighter 1, and where we used to bring them in as a firefighter 2, and they had to be certified. We now have firefighter 1s that we're bringing in and sending them to the academy. So.
Got it. Thank you. Question for Jason. How are you expediting your background process?
Really the expediting, good question. Really what happens is when we're at a job fair, we have everything lined up prior to it. And soon as the employee applies, has their interview, has the conditional offer, we are just immediately starting the background check right at the moment that person accepts. We have somebody either on site or they reach back out to us in central office and just start the process. And it can take, anywhere between like 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the job. The other way that we've done it, and this might be a law specific to Pennsylvania in some ways, but for like child protective services positions, we can do some provisional hiring so a person can start while the background check is being conducted and just go into their training program and just, will be observed around the youth. And then after the background check clears, they can kind of move into the position. So those are the ways we're trying to do that.
Good. Another caller indicated that they are doing some things to try and expedite the process and shorten time to hire by doing the physical exam and the background check simultaneously. So I think looking at your overall hire workflow and where you might be able to do some things concurrently are some good ways to look at how you might be able to shorten time to hire as well. Let's see. One question somebody had was, have you seen any legal issues with testing prior to the job offers? If anybody had any experience with that? No. I mean, from my experience in oh, Heather, go ahead. I didn't catch up.
As long as they're not medical tests, you can do them prior to conditional job offer.
Okay.
As long as they're not deemed medical tests. So we don't do our psych before conditional job offer. We don't do any of the other medical testing prior to conditional job offer. But the written test and those things happen before conditional job offer. We do have the test validated to our employees, to our, the jobs that we have. So
I think that's the key that you just brought up there, Heather, was the test validation. And from the interactions that I've had with various customers, that I haven't heard a lot of cases where people have had legal issues with their tests. It's typically where there's a discrimination complaint, and they are usually able to defend themselves with that, with having a consistent test that is job related, that is administered fairly and equally. And if you're a large enough organization that you have enough data, using things like adverse impact analysis and the item analysis tools that are in the Insight product to be able to make sure that you don't have questions that are discriminatory.
Michelle, I can just add though, for Pennsylvania, there's only certain job titles are really doing some of these on-the-spot hires because of like our veterans preference and the examinations that we give. So, you know, if there's a lot of vacancies like in our RN positions, and the test is basically everybody gets 100, veterans get 110 because you have a license. Long as the agency is willing to hire any veterans that would apply afterwards, and they always have an applicant, we can go ahead and do that, and that would be the one testing or legal not obstacle, but thing we have to consider.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's see. And then a question for all of the panelists. Someone wanted to know if any of you are using the specialty career pages, and if you're not familiar with that term, specialty career pages, that's the ability to have unique career pages by department or agency or by job type. Are any of you utilizing that in your organizations?
We currently aren't.
Looks like a no, okay. And then we had a question about Attract. One of the users wanted to know if any of you were using Attract, and I know that of those of you that are on here, Pennsylvania, Jason, you're the only one that is. They wanted to know what kind of results you're seeing with that. I don't know if you guys have started doing campaigns and things like that yet with Attract.
Yeah, we centralized our recruitment operations about a year and a half ago, and our recruiters, we have about 18 recruiters for 72,000 person organization, which isn't enough, but you know, we're making do. But they did start to use and do some campaigns, and I think it's kind of in the beta phase right now. And I don't know that I know we've had some success. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but it's a gap that we've been looking for years. Like, how do you stay connected with somebody once you meet them at a job fair? And this software seems to be like a really good solution to help us stay connected and keep those people on the hook, because that's what applicants want. You know, they want that experience. They want to be connected to a recruiter the whole way through the process. So we're really excited about it. And I know our whole team's been using it and digging into it.
Yeah, you know what, for the team, I'm not sure, or the folks on the phone, I'm not sure everybody knows what this is. We identified this as an open issue last year, and we actually went out and partnered with a company who actually built a full CRM tool for applicant tracking, and we've now embedded it into Insight or as a module. But what it is, to Jason's point, is it's a thinking about an applicant tracking system where you can engage with an applicant and then continue to keep them excited about being or a possible applicant in the process. We also in the system, in this Attract system, we give you an opportunity, and I'll be clear on this, I should have been on top of this a long time ago, so this is my bad. I mean, I did not support our community well enough here. I'm glad we're getting there now. But basically, if you think about this, like, let's go back to 2020. There's 45 applicants in there. You hired one of them, right? And let's just say of the 45 applicants, 22 of them actually passed minimum qualifications. They were eligible, but they didn't get hired. We have not done a very good job equipping our community with the tools to go back and talk to those 22 applicants that we knew were qualified applicants. So the system actually now will automatically look backwards, pull all applicants for that job who have previously applied, who were eligible, and then automatically email them if the job is in those lower quartiles, right? If you don't have enough applicants, so we don't waste emails. Interestingly enough, Michelle, I saw some results out of another one of our states who's in the beta test. Anybody got any issues hiring correction officers? They had 10,000 previous correction officers who had applied, who had been eligible for a job that was posted. 38% of them opened up the email. So that's a great number, right? So you took this old pool of candidates who applied at your agency. So they told me, I want to work at your agency and I live in your area and I'm interested in this specific job. We know all that information already. So we automatically emailed them and said, hey, in the past, you've already expressed interest. We have another job available. Are you interested? So 38% of them clicked through and then to the email, and then 9% of them actually went to the application page, which is huge numbers. Another one here for a registered nurse, 600 registered nurses were emailed, 58% open rate on that email, which is huge, and then 28% click-through rate. And the reason I think those are too interesting, we consistently hear corrections officers and nurses are really, really hard to hire for. This was great for us to see. It looks like people who have applied in the past, if you actually email them about that specific job that's open and available again, it looks like we're going to see some decent results there. So I'm excited about getting that. I apologize for not having it faster to you guys, but I think it is a tool that certainly will help some of these numbers.
I have one more question I want to bring up, which was the someone asked the question of that increase in job postings of 45%. Do we know why that is? And one of the questions that we asked in the survey is, what are the biggest drivers for the increase in recent job postings? And the people could choose multiple responses, but the three most common responses that we got were voluntary turnover was 83%, said that was a factor. Unable to fill the position previously was 63%, and retirements was 61%. There were other factors as well, but they were all like 15% and below as far as things that contributed to that increase in job postings.
What do you guys, I mean, what are you guys feeling is the biggest driver of exiting that's creating this sort of increase in this vacuum that's getting created? I mean, is it truly people are just getting older and they've decided COVID's done, I'm not coming back to the office and I'm exiting? Or is it that the private sector is getting much more competitive and we're really losing folks to the private sector?
Voluntary turn, what's driving that 83% voluntary turnover number?
For El Paso County, I can say that retirement has definitely been on the rise for us. For our fiscal year for 2021, we saw 347 separations. Of those, 136 were retirees. So we have seen a ripple effect in our leadership team. So we're seeing retirement from the top, creating a ripple effect for our entry-level positions. In turn of that, we're also seeing employee burnout as well. So what we've also implemented is a policy where we can do an interim promotion pay. So we'll compensate this employee for temporarily promoting into this position so that they can go ahead and compensate and make them go ahead and do the tasks of it. So therefore they're being compensated for the additional tasks that they're being added to.
And so go ahead, Jason.
No, I was going to say, I think for at least for Pennsylvania, it really does depend on the job title. You know, a lot of times here that, you know, we've seen in our corrections officers, we never had a problem traditionally in Pennsylvania up until COVID hit. They were primetime jobs, well-paying, located in rural areas. A lot of times it was like families, you know, would just, you know, their whole family would work there. But now we have a washout rate in the first, you know, 5 years or less that's higher than it's ever been. You know, and, you know, this is the first time, you know, Jocelyn brought up compensation. We haven't spoken about compensation this whole time. And, you know, it's not the answer to everything, but that's been coming up, you know, consistently for all of our job titles in the retention piece. We can't get anybody in the front door because of compensation. We can't keep anybody because of compensation. You know, they're going to Sheets or a Wawa or anything along those lines instead of working as an aide. But we made some changes to our nurse aides. Were about $15 an hour, and we moved them up to 17 because there's Wawas and Sheets that are making 17. But I didn't think it's a fair comparison, apples to apples, between, you know, the businesses, because they don't have benefits, they don't have, you know, different guaranteed shifts. But we haven't noticed a significant uptick, even matching the compensation to what some of the local competitors are in some of those hard job titles. But last thing I'll say is we've been actively working to try to. We only had about a 16% completion rate for our exit surveys. And we're trying to find a way, like, how do we get more in touch to have folks complete this so we can give a better lens on like why people are leaving. So we're working on that as well.
Yeah. Just, I don't understand, where did they go in the rural job? Like, where did those, are they not working? Their balance sheet, you know, the consumer balance sheet's pretty big right now. Are they just not working? Or how did they find other jobs in these rural locations?
A lot of it in Pennsylvania, at least, we have a lot of Amazon warehouses, Chewy warehouses, distribution. We're a big trucking area through the region, so they can go to the warehouses. We ran out of CDL drivers, you know, and they're making a lot of money at these warehouses to you know, long haul freight. So that's been our biggest competition, I think, just because of where we're located as a state.
Yeah, you're saying warehouse distribution, low rural makes a lot of sense, and that's that's it. Factor. Out of curiosity, like, if you just if you go like big picture, because we've been talking about like, hey, conversion rate last week was bad, but if you went big picture and you said, How do jobs change in the next 5 years in the public sector? What is that? What would be your response to that? Like 5 years from now, like we've got a current set of jobs we have today. 5 years from now, what does that look like? Is it the same? Has it changed dramatically? Kind of put you guys on the spot on that one. I apologize.
I mean, nothing goes fast in the public sector, right?
Yeah, I was asked that question the other day, and I was like, well, I can't change policing. I'm not changing fire. I'm not going to change water, right, or transportation. So, how do I actually migrate this over a period of time? It's a really interesting sort of discussion and debate. And then I think the other one that is like, to the point around comp, Jason, like at what point do we actually get the elected officials excited about making real change at these positions? And I think it comes back to that servicing citizens. And I guess the question is going to be, at what point does that prioritization topic you guys have not get far enough down the prioritization list where they're saying, no, we have to actually make a change. We have to put more money. We have to do different things. And I don't know if that's 2 years or 7 years or 10 years, but this doesn't work. Like this slide right here, this trend clearly creates citizen impacts over the next 5 years. I don't think there's any question about that. I'll leave us with that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, when you mentioned comp and valuing public sector employment, our governor did something recently that I've never seen done, at least in the 23 years I've been in state government. You know, we have 20 unions in the Commonwealth, and we have our contracts that are negotiated, you know, for our increments coming up. We actually, it's effective August 13th here, we actually expedited our last 2 increases and moved them up. So we were supposed to get one in October and one in January, 4.75 total. The governor was like, listen, we need a market correction. I value you as a workforce, and moved both of to. So now we're going to get a 4.75 increase this month versus spread out over the next couple of years.
And out of curiosity, is it enough?
The way it's broken out, I think it's good for current employees, but one of them is like a longevity step. So the scale is only going to go up 2.5%, and the scale only going up to 4.5% at the beginnings. Probably not enough, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. And like I said, it's a big deal. It's a big deal to have 20 unions and them agree to doing that. You know, I mean, they wanted to do it, but there's a lot of work behind the scenes to get that done.
Look, we're 55 minutes in, and I know we couldn't get all the questions. We'll try to address them if we don't at a later time. This presentation we made available if anybody wants to use a presentation to try to help you guys internally. If you want your own data, reach out to us. We can actually pull your own data and get it in front of you, so you've got that if you don't have the means to pull it. But we really appreciate, certainly, Jason, Heather, Jocelyn, and Jana. Thank you so much for your time. I'm sure, like I got a lot out of it. I'm sure the folks who jumped on got a lot out of it. But thanks so much for joining, and we'll see you guys. We'll let you guys go. Thanks so much. Much appreciated, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.